You're not creative. That's what you tell yourself every time you see someone come up with an amazing idea. That lie has stopped more innovation than failure ever did. But what if creativity had nothing to do with talent? Here's the thing nobody talks about. Every genius you admire was just a really good thief. Einstein built on Newton's work. Steve Jobs didn't invent the smartphone. He just mashed together a touchscreen, a phone, and the internet. Shakespeare. He stole most of his plots from older stories. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how to become creative, even if you think you don't have a creative bone in your body. I'll give you the exact three-step system that creative people use, plus daily practices that take less than 15 minutes. The big lie about creativity. We've been told creativity is this magical thing that some people have and others don't. Like, you're either born with it or you're stuck being boring forever. That's complete nonsense. Here's what creativity really is. It's connecting dots that other people haven't connected yet. That's it. No magic. No special brain powers. Just seeing links between things that seem unrelated. Think about some of the biggest breakthroughs in history. The iPhone wasn't created from nothing. Jobs took three things that already existed: touchscreens from computers, phones that people carried, and internet access, and smooshed them together. Revolutionary product that changed the world. Velcro came from a guy named Georges de Mestral, who noticed how burrs stuck to his dog's fur after walks in the Swiss Alps. He didn't invent sticking or fabric. He just connected two existing things, the hooks on burrs and the loops on fabric, in a new way. That observation turned into a billion-dollar industry. The microwave oven? Percy Spencer was working on radar technology when he noticed a chocolate bar in his pocket melted. Instead of just buying new pants, he connected the dots between radar waves and cooking food. Now there's a microwave in almost every home. Even the greatest artists did this. Picasso mixed African art styles with European painting techniques. The Beatles combined rock and roll with Indian music and classical arrangements. Jazz musicians took blues, ragtime, and brass band music and created something completely new. So when you say, "I'm not creative," what you're really saying is, "I haven't learned how to connect dots yet." And that's a skill you can learn, just like riding a bike. Why most people think they're not creative? There's a reason you believe you're not creative, and it's not your fault. Our education system teaches us there's one right answer to every question. Color inside the lines. Follow the formula. Don't make mistakes. But creativity thrives on mistakes, weird combinations, and breaking rules. When you've been trained for years to find the correct answer, it's hard to switch to finding interesting answers. Plus, we only see the final results of creative work. You see the iPhone launch, not the thousands of prototypes that came before it. You see the hit song, not the years of practice and failed attempts. This creates survivorship bias. We only pay attention to the successes, so we think creative people just have natural talent. The real creative system. Forget waiting for lightning to strike. Here's the three-step system that actually works. Step 1. Absorb like a sponge, but do it smart. Most people consume content in their own little bubble. If you're into business, you read business books. If you like cooking, you watch cooking shows. That's exactly why you feel stuck in the same patterns. Creative people read weird stuff. They watch documentaries about octopus intelligence, then apply those lessons to problem solving. They study how ants build colonies, then use those patterns for organizing teams. They learn about how plants communicate through underground networks, then think about how that applies to building communities. Charles Darwin got his breakthrough idea about evolution not from studying animals, but from reading an essay about population growth by economist Thomas Malthus. The Wright brothers figured out how to fly by studying how birds turn. They noticed birds don't just flap their wings, they twist them. Netflix didn't copy other video rental companies. They studied how gyms work, monthly subscriptions with no late fees. Amazon didn't just copy bookstores. They studied mail order catalogs and applied those principles to the internet. Start feeding your brain from completely different worlds. If you work in tech, read books about ancient history. If you're in marketing, study biology. If you're a teacher, learn about game design. But here's the key: don't just consume passively. When something catches your attention, ask yourself, how does this work? What's the underlying principle? Where else could this apply? Step 2. Create while you learn. This is where most people mess up. They think they need to absorb everything first, then create later. That's like trying to learn to swim by reading about it for months before getting in the water. Your brain works better when you're building something, even if it's tiny and imperfect. Read an interesting article, write a one-sentence summary with your own twist. Watch a cool documentary, make a quick sketch of the main idea. Learn about a smart business strategy, write down how you'd apply it to something completely different. Here's a specific example. Say you read about how Japanese bullet trains are so quiet because engineers studied kingfisher beaks to design the front of the train. Don't just think, that's cool. Ask yourself, what other transportation problems could we solve by studying animals? Then spend 5 minutes writing down ideas. Flying cars that move like hummingbirds, submarines that navigate like dolphins. The key is to create small things constantly. A weird business idea, a random invention sketch, a silly song lyric. These aren't meant to be masterpieces. They're mental push-ups for your creativity. Step 3. Stack ideas. Like building blocks, now comes the fun part. Take 2 completely unrelated ideas from your collection and ask, what happens if I combine these? What if you ran a restaurant like a library? Quiet atmosphere. People could check out recipe books with their meal. What if you made workout videos but set them in museums so people could exercise while learning about art? What if you taught math using cooking recipes? James Dyson didn't set out to revolutionize vacuum cleaners. He was frustrated that his wheelbarrow kept clogging. So he built a cyclone tower to separate the dirt. Then he thought, what if I made this tiny and put it in a vacuum? That connection created a billion-dollar company. Sarah Blakely invented Spanx by combining pantyhose with the problem of visible panty lines. She literally cut the feet off pantyhose and wore them under white pants. That simple combination turned into a billion-dollar business. The founders of Airbnb were broke and couldn't pay rent. They noticed a design conference was coming to town, and all the hotels were booked. So they combined people need places to stay with people have empty rooms. That connection created a company worth over $100 billion. How to practice this daily? You don't need hours every day. You need consistency and the right habits. The Frankenstein Notebook Method. Get a notebook or start a document on your phone. Every day, write down one interesting thing you learned and one random idea you had. Once a week, pick 2 things from different days and try to combine them. Random constraint challenges. Pick a problem you're working on, then force yourself to solve it from a completely different perspective. Ask, how would a chef solve this? How would a pilot approach this? How would a kindergarten teacher handle this? When Pixar was stuck on the story for Finding Nemo, they asked, how would Alfred Hitchcock tell this story? That led them to structure it like a thriller, with constant danger and suspense. The daily connection game. Every day, try to connect something you learned with something you already know. Read about how trees share nutrients through underground networks. Connect that to how successful teams share information. Learn about how wolves hunt in packs. Think about how that applies to project management. The 5-minute rule. Spend 5 minutes every day doing something creative, even if it's stupid. Doodle while you're on a phone call. Write a weird poem about your lunch. Invent a new way to organize your closet. The goal isn't to create masterpieces, it's to keep your creative muscles active. Why this actually works. The science. Your brain is basically a pattern-matching machine that runs on connections. Neuroscientists have discovered that creative insights happen when different parts of your brain start talking to each other in new ways. There's something called the default mode network, a group of brain regions that become active when you're not focused on a specific task. This network is responsible for connecting memories, imagining future scenarios, and making unexpected associations. When you expose yourself to ideas from different fields, you're giving this network more raw material to work with. The more diverse patterns you feed it, the more creative connections it can make. Studies show that people who travel to different countries become more creative, not because travel is magical, but because exposure to different ways of doing things creates new neural pathways. You can get the same effect by reading about different fields or learning new skills. You're not running out of creativity, you're running out of inputs. The mindset shift that changes everything. Stop thinking creativity is mystical. It's mechanical. It's a process you can learn and improve, just like cooking or driving a car. The people you think are naturally creative, they just got better at noticing connections. They trained themselves to ask, what if, more often. They built systems for capturing and combining ideas instead of hoping inspiration would strike. Thomas Edison didn't wait for brilliant ideas to appear. He set a quota, one minor invention every 10 days, and a major one every 6 months. He treated creativity like a job, not a hobby. You don't need permission to be creative. You don't need art school or special training. You just need curiosity and a willingness to connect dots that other people miss. And here's something nobody tells you. Being an outsider is actually an advantage. When you come from a different background, you bring fresh combinations that insiders would never think of. Your weird perspective is exactly what makes your ideas valuable. Some of the biggest breakthroughs come from people who weren't supposed to be experts. The guy who invented the intermittent windshield wiper was a professor, not a car engineer. The woman who created Kevlar was a chemist who accidentally created a weird, cloudy polymer that her colleagues thought was garbage. Your creative future starts now. You don't need to wait until you feel creative. You don't need inspiration to strike. You just need a system for connecting ideas that already exist. Absorb from different worlds. Create small things every day. Stack ideas like you're building with Lego blocks. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. Remember, every breakthrough started with someone asking, what if I combine this with that? The iPhone was, what if I combined a phone, internet, and touchscreen? Uber was, what if I combined taxi service with smartphone apps? Netflix was, what if I combined video rental with gym membership pricing? Now it's your turn to ask that question. Start today. Pick 2 random things you learned this week and ask how they might connect. Write it down. Build something small. Stack one idea on another. Don't worry about being perfect or original. Worry about being curious and consistent. Because the world doesn't need perfect ideas. It needs new ones. And new ideas come from people brave enough to connect dots that nobody else has connected yet. Hit that subscribe button if this video changed how you think about creativity. Your support helps me create more content that breaks down complex ideas into systems you can actually use.